Good morning, everyone, and welcome to this ATTA webinar. My name is Kirsten Bayer with the Illinois Center for Specialized Professional Support at Illinois State University, and I will be the moderator for today's webinar. Today's topic is post-secondary transition to education. Just a couple of housekeeping things before we get started this morning. As a reminder, all participants on the call are in listen-only mode, and if you have questions as the webinar proceeds, you can feel free to post those in the text box. This box might be labeled something different depending on where you're joining us from today. It could be labeled the question box on your screen, the comment box, or the chat box, but those are all synonymous, and it's just a text box that you can converse back and forth with us. It depends what it's labeled if you're joining us from your phone, a tablet, or a computer today. But type anything in there, any comments or questions, and we will address them at the end of the session during a Q&A session. Another reminder that this webinar is being recorded, and the presentation recording and materials from today will be available on the Autism website, and we have posted that in the chat, and you can find some resources located there that we'll be talking about today, and the recording will be up within 48 hours. Tomorrow, each attendee will receive a follow-up email, which will include a survey asking you about today's webinar, if you could provide us with any feedback, and we'll put that same survey in the chat at the end of this session. If you have a couple minutes following the session and you'd like to go ahead and take that survey while the webinar is fresh in your mind. And then a reminder, if you have faulty internet or audio connection today, please feel free to call in using the phone number in your original registration email. And then I also wanted to address the handout section on your GoToWebinar platform. If you're not familiar with GoToWebinar, there is a handout section, and there you can find some resources that we're going to discuss today, as well as today's slide deck if you would like to download those and follow along. And with that, I'm going to hand it off to Carissa, my colleague. Carissa, go ahead.
Thank you. Good morning. I'm Carissa Melody. I am the Access and Transition Coordinator here at the Illinois Center for Specialized Professional Support at Illinois State University. I'm here today with Lewis and Clark Community College representatives, Rosalind Ellington, their project coordinator, Emily DeGran, their special learning needs counselor, and Jill Lordsbach, the director of student development. Next slide, please. This project has been brought to you by the Illinois State Board of Education and the Illinois Center for Specialized Professional Support. So I'm going to turn it over to Jill, and we'll hear a presentation on transition to college by Lewis and Clark, and then I'll come back on and highlight some of the resources that we offer made possible by this project. So go ahead, Jill.
Okay, good morning. My name's Jill Lordsbach. I'm the Director of Student Development at Lewis and Clark Community College, and we're really excited to be here today to share with you some of the projects and programs that we have available for students transitioning into college, post-secondary education. So we have, next slide, please. Go ahead. Let's just hop ahead one more, please. Next slide, please. Okay, so Lewis and Clark is very proud to offer 3 programs which are considered beyond compliance. As you know, the Section 504 of the Rehabilitation Act is pretty broad in what it expects in the post-secondary arena, and so we have developed 3 programs that go above and beyond what is required by law. And the one that we're going to kind of focus on today is a program that we call Supported College Transition. We refer to that internally as SCT. And this is a program for students with little mainstream experience in the high school setting transitioning to post-secondary education. And really the focus of the program is some intense academic coaching that kind of focuses on executive function tasks, task initiation, monitoring progress, organization and planning, stress tolerance, flexibility, response inhibition, social interaction, all those things. And the students in those programs are primarily students with a diagnosis of ADHD, acquired brain injury, or autism spectrum disorder. So at this point, I'm going to go ahead and turn the presentation over to Rosalind Ellington and Emily DeGrand. Rosie is our program coordinator and case manager for the students enrolled in the program. And Emily DeGrand assumes advising responsibility for these students once they transition out of the SCT program into our college pathway to graduation.
Sorry, I forgot I had to unmute myself, but okay, so here are the, like Jill said, we offer 3 main programs out of our student development office: College for Life, Supported College Transition, which Jill spoke about, and Workplace Readiness. Next slide, please. So when students first come to me, we kind of evaluate what they want to do, whether they want to obtain some kind of degree, or if they want to just take classes for social interaction and just to learn a little bit more like life skills. So College for Life is our continuing adult education program for students who don't want to get any kind of degree or certification. A lot of our students already work in the community. We have students that work at Red Lobster, Pizza Hut, and then they take classes in College for Life part-time. Or we have students who start at College for Life who do want to obtain a degree, but they are just not comfortable taking credit classes yet. So they start in College for Life just to lower their anxiety, just get to know the college environment a little bit, and then eventually they can start college credit courses. So a little bit about the College for Life program. It's a continuing education program. The only difficult thing about College for Life is it's not grant funded or financial aid eligible. And so students have to pay out of pocket for these classes. Typically it's called College for Life because students can be there for as long as they want. So we've had students in our program for over 15 years. We offer a lot of the same classes, but we also try to include a lot of different classes. And typically we have 2 campuses that we offer the College for Life program. And we do a Monday, Wednesday, or Tuesday, Thursday schedule from 9 to 3. So the students can go through and pick out the classes that they want to take. The minimum payment for the semester is $475. And we'll also show you some of the classes that we offer. Next slide, please. The only requirement in College for Life is that all students take a class called SelfAdvocacy. It's just to teach the student any needs that the student comes with. Like I know that one semester we had a lot of students who could not figure out how to go to the cafeteria and buy food and have enough money for that food. And so we would do some lessons on that. So that's just a 30-minute time slot where anything that we need to learn to work on in terms of navigating the campus, or maybe like stress, or living a healthy lifestyle, how to, if they're, relationships, anything that the students feel like they want to talk about, that is the 30-minute time slot that is a requirement for all students. Next slide, please. This is just a sample of our Tuesday and Thursday schedule. So it starts at 9 until 3 on Tuesday, Thursday, and you could see just the different course offerings that we have. Computers, math, exercise, geography, drama. Students can basically go, so they have to take the 10:30 time for sure, as well as the 11, but otherwise some students take 9 to 3 all 4 days. Some just come 2 days and take the very minimum. Students can just choose to take classes based on their interest. And on the side is also how much we charge for each class. So full classes are $190 and half classes are $95. Next slide. Okay.
Okay, so Supported College Transition Program, we call the program SCT for short. We place students in this program based off of their high school transcript, IEP. We also place students in classes based off of that criteria. We, in this program, the students are, like Jill said, have some mainstream experience, but are used to smaller class sizes. So with the support of our college transition course and study skills, we can help them through that transition process. In the supported college transition class, which we have SCT 111 and 112, we work with students to make sure that they understand their accommodations in college because they are different from high school. So one of the things that we work with our students is actually asking for the accommodations, role playing. The maximum students in this program is 30. So it is a very small amount. There's only about 10 in each of the SCT 111 courses. We use ICCB approved syllabi, and those are available on our website. It is Pell Grant eligible and DRS funding eligible. We do recommend students be full-time in this program, which is 12 credit hours. The SCT class has a $990 fee attached to the class, along with the regular tuition. Next slide, please. So this is a typical schedule for an SCT student. Some students that do not choose SCT, they would normally take Read 120, which is our developmental reading class, as well as English, developmental English, which is English 120. We actually separate those classes, so they are just doing Read 120. We also, with the math, the pre-algebra, we split the math in half. It's a math 11A and then 11B. This is a 3-semester program. For the first 2 semesters, they have the $995 fee. But then the 3rd semester, they are more integrated into the regular college classes. And so this is just what a typical schedule looks like. Then they do come Monday through Friday, and this is on our Godfrey campus. Next slide. So some students that are in the SCT program, they might go on to earn a certificate. So we have students that have completed like the welding certificate or the welding associate's degree. We do have some students that complete their AA or AS and then transfer to a university. But then we also have another path for students, which is our workplace readiness, which is our comprehensive transition program certificate. And the foundation for that program is the SCT courses, which we will show you soon. And then the students would go on to complete the certificate of workplace readiness. So next slide, please. The comprehensive transition program, which is we call the certificate of workplace readiness, was approved in July of 2016. The foundation of it is from the supported college transition program. So the main courses are Read 120, English 120, our math courses, and then our SCT classes, which I will show you a sample of what a program evaluation looks like for our comprehensive transition program. We also work with Challenge Unlimited for this program, and they help us place students into our internships for this program. We have had about 6 graduates, and we currently have 1 student in this program right now. Next slide. And then right here is just when the student needs to decide if they're going to go on to get a certificate or if they are going to continue to do the workplace readiness certificate. So in SCT, Supported College Transition, we have SCT 111, 112, And then at that point, they will go on to get a certificate, or they will do workplace readiness. Then they do SCT 113 and 114, which is more the job skills, that helping with job skills and resume building. Next slide. So this might be hard to see, but at the top of the sheet are the core requirements for the workplace readiness certificate. These are all classes that would be completed in the SCT program. And then there's the work-based training, which is Jobs 100, which is through Challenge Unlimited. They meet once a week, and the students go over job skills, work on their resume, and then also work with Challenge Unlimited to find the internships for the co-op 131 and 132. And then the bottom part is this has to be a 60 credit hour degree. So the student can really decide on whatever course they want to take to complete this certificate. And the students can either do it for credit or they can do it for audit. This is Pell Grant eligible. Next slide, please. So for the students that we serve within our department, we have about 105 College for Life students. We have 60 supported college transition students. And then I advise about 250 students. Next slide. Does anyone have any questions? Are we waiting till the very end?
Sorry, I don't see any questions in the chat right now. If anyone has any questions, feel free to put them into the chat, and then we can address them throughout or at the end. No questions for now. So thank you so much, ladies. That was great. I love. So go ahead and go to the next slide. I guess you guys will have all your contact information. Will be on this slide. And then the next slide is me, so I can take over. So thank you so much to Lewis and Clark Community College on presenting that transition to college. Not only do I enjoy hearing about all the different programs that you offer, but just the wide variety of students that you guys service. I just think you're really doing it right and hitting quite a few different types of students and populations. So thank you. Next slide, please. So my agenda today is just gonna, I'll go through a brief overview of autism spectrum disorder, and I'll introduce you to some of our documents that have been created specifically for this project. Some of the changes from high school to college. There will be some tips for parents, faculty, and students, and then we'll talk about some different college choices. So next slide, please. So autism spectrum disorder is a developmental disability. It can cause significant social, communication, and behavioral challenges. Often there's nothing about how individuals with autism look apart from others, but they may communicate, interact, and behave and learn in different ways. The learning, thinking, and problem-solving abilities range from gifted to severely challenged. So some need more help in their daily lives and others need less. As the prevalence rate continues to increase, currently the CDC reports 1 in 54 individuals have been identified with autism spectrum disorder. So ASD is reported to occur in all racial, ethnic, and socioeconomic groups, but it's 4 times more likely to be common among boys than girls. So next slide, please. Thank you. So I'll be highlighting resources from our college and career website. So it's just autismcollegeandcareer.com. When this project first started 4 years ago, our advisory committee identified these 6 stakeholders involved in supporting transitions to post-secondary education and employment for individuals on the autism spectrum. These 6 include secondary and post-secondary educators, the students themselves or young adults, their families, communities, and employers. You'll find specific resources in the handout section that I'll discuss here. And then, of course, on our website, you'll access many, many more. So there are resources that are specific to each population. So the first document I'd like to discuss are supporting changes from high school to college. So as the prevalence rate of autism increases, it makes sense that more individuals are graduating high school and transitioning to college. I recently read a report that over 500,000 students in the US graduated in 2020 that were with autism. This article went on to say that in the next decade, there will be over 1 million graduating each year. It was just an article, so I'm not sure about the accuracy of these numbers, but that's enough to make me want to do everything I possibly can to get the word out, because going to college is very attainable for students on the spectrum. As we heard from Lewis and Clark, there's programs available for a wide range of individuals, and there's programs on college campuses, offices that can help and support individuals with special needs. So helping to get the information into the hands of students, their families, educators, and when they're in high school or even sooner is going to help to make it possible to bridge this gap in services. So college is a very different experience than high school. The focus should not be about just getting a college degree, but we want every one of these kids to become successful adults. Next slide, please. So there's several differences in supports for students with special needs at high school level compared to the college level. We have a document called, that I just talked about, Support Changes from High School to College, which was created specifically for this project, and it highlights these differences. So I kind of put a few of them here. Like in high school, IDEA, the Individuals with Disabilities Act, ensures the right to education, where they're guaranteed access to free and appropriate education. And it covers the individual from high school all the way through graduation or the age of 21, whichever comes first. But college is voluntary, it's a privilege, and it can be very costly. It's governed by Section 504, the Civil Rights Statute enforced by the Office of Civil Rights at the U.S. Department of Education, and the American with Disabilities Act. So in high school, all the accommodations that the student needs to ensure success and graduation are written into their IEP, their individual education plan, and this is upheld by law. It's a legal document. But in college, disability is a broader term and focuses more on your impairments or limitations. The college can give reasonable accommodations, but it's really up to the student to ensure that they're getting the accommodations that they need. So we'll get into self-advocacy and independence, but first I want to talk about disclosure. So next slide, please. So disclosure is the decision to tell somebody that you have a disability. In this case, with this project, we're talking about autism. Disclosure is a sensitive process and highly personal. So telling someone that you have a disability, it could help them understand you. However, it might put you in a very vulnerable position. And with disclosure comes advocacy. So the choice to disclose should be meaningful. It should emphasize abilities and strengths. Then realistically assist with the challenges that can come with autism. So once an individual understands their challenges, they can effectively advocate for themselves. So these are some of the questions you'll find on our document that's about disclosing your disability. So some questions and then possible outcomes to consider, because it is a very personal choice. So Temple Grandin actually suggests disclosing only the accommodation. She has said several times that she would never tell anyone she has autism, but she might say, to do this job effectively, I need this accommodation. Like if you struggle with fine motor skills, writing with a pen or pencil, then a reasonable accommodation for you might be using a keyboard or having a note taker, which is a very popular accommodation in college. But colleges will want to know why you need these accommodations, so disclosure is required. Dr. Stephen Shore, I wrote down here, he's a really great resource with several books and videos on self-advocacy, college disclosure, and the lifelong impact having autism himself and working at a college and teaching at a college. I just found he has some really great resources. So on college campuses, self-disclosure is a necessary request to receive accommodations. It can help level the playing fields, but the specific details of your disability can definitely remain confident. Your professors don't need to know why you need this accommodation specifically. So next slide has some more differences and some of the ATTA documents that can assist you through this transition to college. So like I said, in high school, attendance is mandatory. In college, you definitely should attend to maintain some good grades, but it's not always mandatory. In high school, by law, parents are required to be invited to the IEP meeting, and there's a whole team that structures the student's day, and they're in the classroom about 6 hours a day or 30 hours a week. And these, like I said, these accommodations and modifications are agreed upon the entire team, and they're written into that IEP. The parent or guardian is the primary advocate for the student. In college, that student typically turns 18 and they're an adult. So now they have their own rights and they cannot get access to the students, or the parents, the parents can't really be involved without the student approval because of the Privacy Act. Conversations with the parents require written consent. If you're a full-time college student, you're probably only going to class about 12 to 16 hours a week instead of 30. So this is a big difference, about half the time. And the student's in charge of their own schedule, their own accommodations. The college accommodations are considered reasonable and cannot fundamentally change the requirements of the course. So things can't really be modified. In high school, the teacher or case manager follows up to ensure that your accommodations are being met. In college, the professor might not even know your name. So the student's in charge of making time during the professor's office hours to meet with them privately and in person to discuss their needs. However, it is so important to remember that professors are human and they want all of their students to succeed, but they can't help if students don't tell them what their need is. So here's some of the documents that we've created. A timeline for transition to college to high school just kind of has some of the things that you need to do, the steps that you need to take in college or in high school to prepare you for college. It outlines what you should be doing freshman year, 10th, 11th grade, and then senior year to get ready. And then we have a self-assessment tool that can help you to pinpoint your strengths and ultimately pinpoint any challenges or needs that you might have for accommodations. We also have a sample intake questionnaire, which will kind of go through, and this is very thorough. So on college intakes, you might not find this many questions, but we really tried to put together a thorough document so that you're really thinking about everything that they might ask you. So then our syllabus review, which helps you to highlight the important information from the professor's syllabus. And you can use this on your high school syllabus, your college syllabus, and it just helps point out professor's office hours, their grading scale, your assignments, your due dates. I'll show you a sample of that. So next slide, please. So here is just a sample. I just screenshotted some portions of our syllabus review organizer and the timeline transition from high school to college. The syllabus review, it's a one-page organizer. This is pretty much, you see everything here, just more simplified than the college syllabus that you get, which might be several pages. And then the timeline is just kind of a checklist of things students can do to ease that transition to college process. So next slide is just a quote about independence. 45% of students are dying for it, 45% are terrified of it, and 10% are both. Next slide, please. So some tips for the students. Self-awareness, really these are for adults too. I feel like at any age they can be useful, but start practicing these as early as you can, in high school for sure. The timeline from post-secondary life, you lose some of your structures and rules of home life when you go to college. You have newfound freedoms. No one is telling you when to go to bed. Eat whatever junk food you like, right? No one's watching over your shoulder or nagging you. So you really have to have some of these skills, or you might miss class or be late, and that just doesn't look good. Being aware of yourself and your needs is number one. Do you know what your disability is? Does it make you different from others? Studies show that there are 1 in 10 individuals that are considered neurodiverse, is more of a new coin term, I guess, but that means you're not alone. We all have our strengths and we all have our challenges. So just knowing yours is going to be most of the battle. Are you on any medications? Do you know what they are, how they help you? Do you know how to get refills? Really thinking about your interests can lead to your ultimate goal of future employment, right? We all want to get a job and have it be a good paying job. Are there school subjects you like better than others? Was there a lesson that intrigued you, maybe set up a light bulb in your head and left you wanting to find out more? Do you really know your capabilities academically, behaviorally, communication-wise? Do you know useful strategies that help you overcome your challenges? And this, for sure, in high school, begin to try to go without some of your supports or modifications, especially like a one-on-one aid. You're really not going to get that in college. College can't provide that. That would have to come from an outside resource or outside entity. So work on becoming more dependent. Think through your executive functioning skills. Take that self-assessment and see where you are. Can you wake up on your own, set your own alarm, get yourself dressed? Do you use an organizer for your tasks and assignments? Do you create a plan and stick with them and turn things in by the due date? Can you advocate for yourself? This is a big one. If you're confused, do you ask for help or ask questions? Do you participate in class with your professor or teacher, your fellow students or peers? Do you plan and make your own meals? Do you manage your own money? Can you do your own laundry? How's your attitude when you face challenges? Can you remain calm and use strategies to overcome them? Are you resilient? Can you bounce back after experiencing challenging? Learn from it and try not to make it as challenging next time. Do you know how to access your support system, your family, your professors, your tutors, any other campus services? Remember, you don't have to do what everyone else does. You can find a club or hobby that really interests you. When you're making friends, find those common interests. Hang out where you're most comfortable, not in a strange place. And do your research. Make sure you alleviate your anxiety by knowing the campus. Do a virtual tour, look at the campus map, research any questions you might have and figure out the answers so that you're more knowledgeable and can be more confident the day that you step onto that campus. Notice academic ability is not on this list. You've made it. You're in college, you've applied, you have academic ability. You will face challenges academically, but if you possess all these other qualities, you can overcome them. And professors are human, they care. However, they don't know what you need unless you tell them. So be your own advocate. Next slide, please. So these are just some characteristics. I got this from Michael Dugan. He's at the College of DuPage. He's the creator of Autism America at College of DuPage. He just came up with a little list in his book, First Class Support for College Students on the Autism Spectrum, of some characteristics he feels of a successful post-secondary education student. So I thought it was worth a throw in. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. These are just quotes for parents. Sometimes people don't notice things we do for them until we stop doing them. So really, stop doing things for your kids. They've got to learn to do some things on their own. But the fact that you worry if you're a good enough parent kind of means you already are. So don't give yourself such a hard time. Next slide, please. So this one just talks about what can parents do. Parents, like it or not, they're going to be on their own physically. We've got to let them go. But you're just a phone call away. I know I worry about my kids and I wonder if I've prepared them enough. And when I'm with my almost 20-year-old daughter, there's still some things that I need to teach her. We're always learning, right? We're always teaching. So anything you can do at home now to help prepare them to be more independent is just going to help them in the future. So my son will be going to college in the fall, and he says, don't worry, Mom, I'll bring home my laundry every weekend for you. And guess what? I'm going to do it, because even though I've taught him how to do laundry, I love to take care of them still and pamper them still, right? But so there's always going to be questions. The washing machines all have different knobs, different ways to operate them, and putting coins into a washer and dryer, that's kind of weird, right? So check in regularly, ask specific questions, find out if they've had any challenges. Are they making friends, communicating with their professors? Also, you know, the typical mom questions we're going to need to ask: have you slept enough? Are you eating right? Are you staying on top of your homework? But don't let them shut you out. Find out a good time for them to check in, and make sure you check in at least weekly. Even if they're living at home and going to a community college, I know they can shut you out. They can close their doors. So make sure they don't. Be involved. Make sure you're asking these specific questions. Next slide, please. So this is just a funny, for faculty, Maury says it, right? It must be true. You told us that college professors didn't care about their students, but the fact that my professor took 2 hours out of his free time to help me with my research paper determined that was a lie. Professors do care. They love teaching, helping, and supporting students, or they would not be in this field. So next slide, please. So we've got a document that's called Tips for Faculty, and that is on our website under Postsecondary. So students with special needs may decide to utilize the special disability support services offered by a college, but they may not. And so you might have a student in your class who has some of these things that you might notice. An individual with autism, they might have difficulties in communication or understanding and processing information or expressively using language. They might have difficulty with social interactions, their behaviors and feelings. And they might present with rigidity or some repetitive movements. They really thrive on routine and rules. Their senses could be heightened. They could be bothered by the fluorescent lights, noises that you hear that you don't even hear. They might notice, like the sound from the lights, or smells, or any slight movement in the classroom that you don't even notice. Group work is going to be challenging. They could be left out, deemed as a weak link, or maybe thought of as the most capable team or group member and be told to do the entire project. And they will if they're told to. So they might lack social skills and might not speak up for themselves. So if you have this student in the classroom who is, maybe you notice these things, or maybe they're requesting accommodations, but they need to go through the disability offices first. So of course, care and confidentiality should be taken into consideration. So next slide is from the same document. These are just some strategies for faculty. So I'm not going to read through all these. I mean, you know, you're faculty at a college, so I feel like, you know, a lot of these reminders you're probably already doing, but it just always helpful to revisit some of these things. So next slide, please. So these are just options for college. So there's so many options, excuse me, to explore when considering post-secondary education. Community colleges are a great option because the student can still live at home and experience college and navigate through every other college skill except for the independent living skills, right? Just a little bit at a time. There's universities out there, but they take some consideration trying to navigate school plus living on campus, new sleeping arrangements, a roommate. And then there's technical skills, and these are a really great option for students who have great technical skills, but maybe academics are a struggle. So these programs have like welding, HVAC, truck driving, there's art schools, cosmetology schools, dental medical assistant, massage therapist, medical coding. So there's lots of different options at technical colleges. There's also alternative post-secondary programs. ThinkCollege.net has a really good college search where you can search by state, and there's, I think, about 14 programs in Illinois. Lewis and Clark is one of them that has that specialized college program for the students that aren't quite ready academically to go straight into the academic classes. You know, but because most community colleges, if they don't have a specialized program, will require like a college placement exam. And even if they don't score well on the math and reading, they'll be eased into the college program. So there's still hope for everyone. You still really can access or take some separate courses, like Lewis and Clark was mentioning some of the adult education courses where maybe you just take a computer course or, you know, take something separate like that to learn specific skills, just one class at a time. So it's tons of options. Next slide, please. So there's actually a map on iccb.org, which has the community college in your area. So this is a map of the entire state of Illinois, and it'll show you whatever area you're in, the community college that you live in. So, but some of these specialized community colleges, if they're close by, you can access them. Like Lewis and Clark said, some of the specialized programs, you have to pay out of pocket. There is not a Pell Grant that can be used for these programs, like can be for the traditional college courses. So, next slide, please. So of course, the ultimate goal is future employment. So the choices are endless. There are just so many things out there. So find your passion and fill in the blank, and then make a plan and go after it. You can do this. There are lots of options for all kinds of different learners. Next slide, please. The good news is, students, you are not alone. Go out there and visit any and all campuses you're interested in. Make sure when you're visiting, you stop by the Disability Services office, find out how they operate, their training, and their willingness to provide accommodations. Don't forget to ask about extra services like mental health services, speech services. Collect all the facts and the information so that you can make informed decisions about disclosure and the services that you might need. Next slide, please. So again, visit our website. Here's some of the documents I talked about today. Next month, we're actually going to take a deep dive into our student self-assessment. So we're really going to be picking that apart and talking about all the different categories of that document and giving you some good tips on self-advocacy and speaking up for your needs. Next slide, please. So in summary, today we heard from Lewis and Clark about the transition process and more specifically about the programs that they offer. We talked about autism, tips for students, faculty, and parents. I discussed a lot of the resources that ATTA created for this transition to college process. I also highlighted the work of Dr. Stephen Shore. Michael Dugan was in there. This slide has Jane Thierfeld Brown, who actually not only has a son with Fragile X, but she's a clinical professor at Yale and has over 40 years experience in disability services. So I found the work of these three align so well to our goals here at ATTA. So visit any of these extra websites, of course, our website, because there are lots of great resources out there. Next slide, please. So thank you so much. Again, you can visit our website, but reach out to me. Next slide, please, Kirsten. But reach out to me anytime directly, and I can help you if you have any specific resources. So we are done with our presentation. So I just want to open it up if there's any questions or comments or anything that you're doing. I know there's other faculty on here from colleges, so anything you want to highlight in your programs. I don't know, you know, personally about all the colleges and programs out there, so I would just love to highlight anything that you're doing or any light bulbs that went off. But again, thank you all for being part of our webinar this morning. So I don't see any questions. Kirsten, do you see any questions?
No, Chris, I don't see. I see a couple actually. One is, can you share a copy of the article with the 500,000, 1 million statistic?
Yeah, I can.
And then, is this offered to disabled students over the age of 45? Do you think this information
I think
is
that's for Lewis and Clark.
Yeah, we do. We have students who in College for Life, we have students who are over 60 that still attend our program.
We find that for our supported college transition program, adult students, especially students who are over 45, are a little too street smart for the population. They have usually developed their own accommodations and ways of navigating through life. And so they really typically are not appropriate for the supported college transition project.
Okay, and then we would like to know, an executive function self-assessment was mentioned. Is that provided somewhere? It should be, Lacey, all the resources from today are on that website that I posted in the chat. And then some of them are also in the handouts as well.
Yeah, and that self-assessment, if you go on our website and go under students, it'll be under the assessment category at the top. Yeah, and it's so thorough. It really does cover everything from academics to hygiene to sexuality. It is a very thorough document. Not done by me, so I'm not going to say, not tooting my own horn here, but.
Okay, can you talk about any scholarships for students with autism for college? Do you have any suggestions?
So at Lewis and Clark, all students are able to apply for a wide range of scholarships. And so a community college is what is known as an open access institution. So there is no admission requirement for admittance. I think it may be a little different at a university, in a university setting that does have admission requirements, but I think a good resource for you would be to contact the Office of Financial Aid at whatever institution, and they can usually direct you to a list of scholarships that are available. And most colleges, including Lewis and Clark, have a simple way of applying. So at Lewis and Clark, for example, you fill out one form and it automatically matches you to any scholarships that you're available for. So I feel like most institutions would have something similar.
Okay, and then Alex says, curious what pieces of the LC program are funded by DRS, both SCT and CFL?
Just SCT. So College for Life is self-pay. It's non-credit, so it is not Pell Grant eligible. So the Department of Education basically has requirements on the money, and you have to be in a college credit-bearing program to receive those funds.
Okay. Are there IQ qualifications for students with intellectual disabilities?
Not at an open access institution. So we don't encourage students with different levels of ID or DD to take classes. We don't want to set students up for failure, so we do review placement testing data. And so we either do that through high school transcript, a test called an AccuPlacer, or SAT or ACT score. And so we try to place students in courses, we're required to place students in courses that match that placement data. So we have a class called Reading 120 and English 120, and some students just need a little extra remediation to get up to college level, while other students, their reading levels are quite low. And what we find is that students who start in those classes, we have the option of issuing a grade called a PR, which is progress made, but we need to re-enroll. And so a student could potentially repeat that class up to 3 times. But if the student is not able to progress after the 3rd attempt, they're no longer able to move forward, which we would then probably refer them to the comprehensive transition program and workplace readiness. Like maybe a college credential isn't going to be attainable for you, but let's see what we can do to get you into the workforce and find something that matches your skills and interests.
Okay. If a student lives in a community college that is not in the College for Life program, would their tuition, or could their tuition, be the same price as a resident district or be out of district tuition?
Yes, so we are offering all of our College for Life classes right now are online. They're virtual remote learning classes. And so we have students who are out of our district who are taking those classes. So they pay the same amount for non-credit classes in or out of district. So we have a student from Florida right now. We have some students from Indiana, and those students are able to enjoy the College for Life classes virtually, which we are going to continue to offer a virtual option even once the pandemic, we're out of all the mitigations in our area for the pandemic. We will continue to offer virtual classes because there are a lot of students who don't have a program available to them, and we are happy to be able to serve them.
Okay. Thank you so much for answering this, everyone. And then we did have a question of, will this presentation be able to review? Absolutely. The slide deck for today is in the handouts. You can access it there. You can also access it through the website that I've posted in the chat. I'll post it again right now. And all the resources from today and the recording and the slide deck, all the things will be on that website. And it will be under today's presentation date and title. We're getting a lot of feedback from thank you for being very informative. Thank you for the information, which is great feedback. Thank you guys so much.
I just wanted to say I know my eyes were crazy looking for the article on the 500,000 graduated on the autism spectrum in 2020, and I've read it in a lot of places, so there's not one specific. There are Forbes has a document, Autonomy Works has a document that says that, or an article, Autism Speaks talks about it. So I read it in a lot of work, autism in the workforce articles. So if you research just 500,000 graduate with autism spectrum disorder, you will find just article after article that says this. But like I said, I don't know how valid the information is. It's just in articles, but it's just enough for me to really want to get the word out and to bridge the gap for these students, because there's so many students that have great skills that just need to be able to get to the point of employment. So sorry, I don't have anything specific for you.
Okay. So I don't see any other questions coming through. And so we will log off for today. Please feel free to take the survey that will be in your follow-up email tomorrow. And you can put any questions in there if you need any further feedback, and we will address them. And we can address them in FAQ if needed, if we get enough participation. So thank you, everyone. Thank you so much to Lewis and Clark and Carissa, and everyone have a great rest of your Tuesday.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Kirsten. Bye, guys.